Hi, back for another Vicky Diss video. Today I thought I'd talk about my experience with a kind of lockdown that I've been in for quite a while, and I think it's very poignant at the moment with regards to lots of other people being in lockdown and experiencing something that there is a percentage of the population living consistently in various ways in regards to chronic health conditions, particularly when those include things like fatigue and illness exacerbated by activity. So those things are very different, but they usually come together. Now, I know some people watching this know me quite well, but I'll just introduce my history and how I got there, and just to validate the kind of person that I am, I suppose. So, I have always been an outdoor person. As a child, I used to leave the house. I have ADHD. I used to leave the house at 5, 6 a.m. As soon as the sun was up, I'd leave the house. I lived in the middle of the country, so I used to go off in playing in the countryside, in the trees and farmers' fields and streams and various things. And I used to often take a picnic with me and stay out until the streetlights came on, and then I'd come home. And that didn't change as I grew up, really. I was always in sports teams. If you name a sport, I've usually played it unless I really had an aversion to it. I represented Nottinghamshire or Bassetlaw, which was my district at football for under 11s. I represented Nottinghamshire at rugby for under 16s. I represented Nottinghamshire for shooting under 16s. I represented my university at rugby in the first, although we only really had one team, but it was the first. And I also skated. I played roller derby for 2 years, and in that time I was on 2 travel teams, and I played for both travel teams internationally. Played Stuttgart, Antwerp, Ghent. We played Sioux City Falls from America. Various other, been to Berlin. We played some of the Scandinavian teams. And I was always very active and was probably one of the fitter members on my team. Very, very active. I used to run. I used to go to the gym before and after work. Everything was fitness. And I've also trained and ridden horses for 32 years, and I worked in America for 4 years running a ranch. I had 28 horses to look after, 8 members of staff to manage, around 50 kids directly and 300 kids indirectly to look after, because there were other areas that kids were at, and trained as a coach and qualified in America and the UK to coach Western riding and horse riding in general. So I was always a go-getter, and then I had a car accident. I'd always had bits of health issues before then. I used to get a lot of sickness and migraines after games and after matches, and I was just kind of got on with it. And after my car accident, I had to go on to bed rest for a period of time. I didn't to start with. This is why it got so bad. I didn't really tell anyone how much pain I was in, and I was just finding things harder and harder, and struggling a bit more and getting really frustrated with myself because I couldn't perform at the level I'd been used to. So I decided to tackle my back, and I rested it and thought I was doing everything right. And what happened in the meantime was I discovered I'd had some chronic illnesses that I had been keeping at bay by being exceptionally healthy with my eating and with my exercise. And due to my back injury, it spiraled out of control, and then that exacerbated by losing my income, my job, all my social circles, my ability to leave the house, my career. It wasn't just my job, it was my career. Luckily we didn't lose our house. We managed to keep hold of that, but we had periods with extreme poverty and no heating. Sometimes we couldn't eat. We had a week once that all we had was 4 packets of chocolate biscuits that we rationed over 7 days. And at one of our absolute lowest, I did actually have a call on social media and got some amazing people to lend me a little bit of money so that we could eat, because we were still waiting 5 months later for ESA to be approved and things. Um, and I ended up in this situation where I was very, very, very poorly. I couldn't eat. I was eating 2 Babybels a day. I was lying on a sofa, unable to move. I ended up with adult social care, came in at some point when it got really bad, because I couldn't even, at times I had to be fed by somebody else. I couldn't actually lift the food to my mouth. And going from someone who was incredibly active and very, very self-independent, to somebody that had to be fed was mentally quite crushing, and very depressing. And at times I'd just sit there and fixate on very negative spirals of thought. And I was stuck because I couldn't go out. If I went out, it made my symptoms worse. Sometimes I couldn't move. Sometimes I could get out and about. About a year before it got to the really bad point, I would go out, but I'd end up with crushing migraines and neck pain and back pain and end up bedridden for days afterwards. And then that's when we ended up with a wheelchair so that I could be taken out. And that was difficult because my partner's really tall and he really struggled pushing that. So it was never a positive experience leaving the house. It became quite negative, because he was in pain and suffering, and I felt personally responsible for that. And also the fact that, when we first met, I was a very slim, very active woman, very independent. And over the course of 5 years, I went from that to being unable to feed myself and having to have my fiance actually feed me, or to have liquid food out of a straw, things like that. And then I made some drastic life choices. I cut out a lot of toxic people. I got a therapist. I was diagnosed with complex PTSD. And we started to work through a lot of the issues and try and alleviate that. One of our big focuses was getting me eating again. And I'd been working up eating. And then I fell pregnant, which was actually a massive blessing. I'd always wanted a child. It wasn't like unwanted completely. But yeah, it forced me to eat, and it forced me to really, I was eating and being sick. So when I was eating, my stomach couldn't handle it, but I had to push through that and force the case, because I had no energy to tackle everything else going on. And through being pregnant gave me that real focus and direction to sort myself out and give me a reason to kind of really push through. So yeah, over the course of the pregnancy, I started to eat. By around 7 months, I'd gone up to 2 to 3 meals a day, which was massive. Gone from 2 Babybels a day to 2 to 3 meals a day, which was absolutely incredible. And then after having my son, I was still struggled a lot. I still had help from adult social. I still have help now from adult social services in regards to certain aspects. But back then, I couldn't. I had a tray next to me with the things I need, so I found it very difficult to move. And while he was small, that was fine because everything I needed was around me, and he didn't really move. He slept a lot. And as he's grown, I've actually grown in strength a little bit and become more able. But I still have these restrictions that if I do too much, my neck pain starts and it moves into my head, and then I start being sick. So I have to really limit what I do to certain points. Very limited, leaving the house a couple of times a week still, before lockdown. And choosing what I found important enough to leave the house. So I had to go to the supermarket because I'm the only driver. I've got an electric wheelchair now, so I was able to get out and about with the help of somebody else lifting that in and out the car and choose what shopping. I mean, that was after 2 years of not being able to choose your own food in a supermarket. and someone who loves cooking like me, and I can't physically cook all the time. I have to have a lot of help. Sometimes I do it, but I have a lot of pain associated with that, and a lot of accidents. Got a lot of scars from dropping burning oil on my foot, and knives on my foot, and cutting my hands and things are quite regular if I do it myself. But I'm really strong-minded, and I'll do it. It's just it's not always safe. So. And then we went into lockdown, and it's very interesting because I'd only just got to the point I was probably leaving the house 3 or 4 times a week for an hour. And I'd really built up to that, and I'd really worked for that, and it was difficult. It's not easy at all. It's not, you know that when you go out, it's going to make you ill, but you want to go out because you're just fed up of not going out, and after years of being in this situation. So the lockdowns happened, and I'm finding a lot of other people are experiencing exactly what I experienced, minus the illness. I will say there's a big part of that, because a lot of people used to say how nice it must be to spend all your time at home and to not have to work and all of the rest of it. And for one, I'd just like to add, I run 2 businesses, so I don't just sit at home. I'm not on income support. My partner works, so I wouldn't be eligible anyway. And I just I had to challenge myself. I had to do something, and I just have to limit the amount I work and have flexible hours to work around my physical health, basically, and give myself decent timelines to work from. So it allows a couple of days of being really ill to fit into that, so then I don't get behind. And so far the model I've gone with works really well, because it actually works for my clients really well, for the type of work I've chosen with web design, graphic design, because they tend to come back to you every day, every few days, so you can kind of work alongside what I'm doing. And then I sell my books online and do the odd book fair as well, because that was to help me get out the house, really. And I love books and stories. So yeah, basically there's a very long explanation of exactly who I was and where I got to. Now, lockdown's a very interesting one, because a lot of people used to tell me how easy my life was being stuck in my house and not being able to leave. And I don't think they understood the reality of that. I think they felt maybe I was sitting at home and going out for coffee and going out for walks and doing all the things they'd like to do on a weekend. And the reality of it was I was at home 90% of the time. Sometimes I was so ill I'd stare at a wall for 4 hours and focus on my breathing. And sometimes when I was having a good day, I'd be able to play on my Xbox. I love gaming, and I play a lot of video games. And I do that because it allows me to explore and adventure and play sport and ride horses and do all the things I love doing without causing me physical pain. And I have a neck brace for doing this sometimes. If I'm sitting too long, I have to put my neck brace on to help while I'm video gaming. And you sit and you wish you could go outside, and you see everybody else going outside and doing the things they enjoy and having their career, and doing all these amazing things. And I'm not a jealous person. I've never ever wished I was somebody else. I've actually embraced it the last year or so. I felt that this was a lesson in my soul that I needed to learn, to step back and not always be on the go and not always be chasing perfection, which was how I kind of managed things before. And I thought I'd share. I don't want it to, in no way am I, having a moan or anything. I really am not, This is just, everybody has their challenges. This was my worst nightmare. I said it before I even got ill. I said I knew people who had ME and other illnesses similar, MS, fibromyalgia, etc. And I always said that would be my absolute worst nightmare. And I lived it, and I am living it, I suppose. And the human body is resilient in the way that you can handle more than you expect, and you can handle more than you realise. And my top tips these last few years for getting through it, you go through a bereavement process. And it must be similar for people in general lockdown. You are sad for what you've lost. You're sad because you've lost your freedom. You're sad because you've lost maybe your career. Maybe you've lost, even if you're furloughed, a lot of current thinking is around your worth being your career. When people meet someone, they often ask, what do you do, as a first question. And that's incredible. And in a lot of chronic illness circles, we discuss that, because a lot of people who are very ill can't work. And when the first question they're asked when they meet someone new is, what do you do? It's very hard to explain that in a way that they would understand. And I think this lockdown is definitely a time that we should be challenging what is our worth. Our worth is more than our job. Our worth is more than our employment and our direction. It is equally valid that what you do is you read, or you play games, or you enjoy looking after your family. Those are massively, worthful directions to go in. And I think even with careers at the moment, people look down on people working in shops, people look down on people, even nurses, I suppose, in some respect. I never have. And even before this, I remember I spoke about giving a discount to people at the school, and the cleaner said, well, I'm just a cleaner. And I said, the school would not operate without the cleaner. So in my eyes, I'm giving you the discount as well as the teachers, because everybody that runs this school is part of this school. And she was quite surprised that I had that view. And it is, people need to reassess that and really focus that, the cleaners are actually now a vital key service. The nurses are a vital key service. That traditional jobs that people looked up to and thought were of huge value. It always frustrated me when you speak to people and they say these billionaire CEOs are worth every penny they have. And I think, no, I know people that work so hard, and I've worked with millionaire CEOs. Okay, I'm not just one of these people who doesn't understand. I've worked in senior business management. I've worked with people on six-figure salaries as peers. I've sat in rooms and board meetings with these people. I was a young female, so I didn't warrant those, salaries, but I did manage to buy my own house age 27. So I wasn't not paid, but I definitely wasn't paid the same as some of the old white CEO guys that were running other sections of the business. And I can with 100% certainty say I have never met somebody on a 6k salary that works as hard as somebody on minimum wage. 100%. And I just want to add that out there. And if you're not working, you still have worth and value. And if you're feeling that you don't have value right now because you're on furlough, you're not working, you're stuck at home, this is the time to reassess that, I think. And a lot of people with chronic illness have had to do that, and they spend a lot of time in therapy trying to unprogram that section of the brain that says you are your job, because you are not. And, people at the moment, teachers, a lot of parents are discovering how hard teaching is. It's not a job I'd want to do. I did once, I wouldn't ever want to do it again. It is hard work, and being a mother is hard work, and it is just as valued as those six-figure CEOs. Honestly, you work hard. And I think you'll be going through a bereavement process, was my original point, and you need to move from that and try and reframe your thinking and see, what have you got right now. You've got more free time than you've ever had in your life, unless you're a key worker. I do understand that, and this is more to those people sharing my experience of being in lockdown. And I just want to say, anyone not in lockdown, you have all my respect. You need to reframe what you enjoy doing. My entire hobbies, my entire interests pre-chronic illness involved being outside and being very active. And I had a high-flying career that was, salaried, and I worked a lot of hours. And that was all taken in one go. So you have to reframe what you enjoy and how can you still enjoy the things you do. Take up new hobbies, reframe things. Think, what did you always think you'd like to have a go at but never got the chance? Equally, sitting and watching Netflix is not a bad thing right now. If you need that time to just chill, then use it. you know. And maybe you'll get to the end of Netflix. And that's not a bad thing at all, but those of you who have a garden and can go out and enjoy that, do that. If you try learning to draw, reading books, organising, DIY. I'm seeing a lot of these things out there, and all of them are completely valid and ways to explore different areas of your personality that maybe you weren't utilising before because you were too busy stuck in the 9 to 5 grind. And I definitely take self-care is really important. It's very easy when you're at home to stop brushing your teeth, don't brush your hair. I mean, yes, not wearing a bra, and you don't have to wear a bra. That's not, it's fine. These things you can let go. But try and create your own routine that's different, because a lot of your routine would have been around working. So you need to create a routine that works differently. And routine's really important, I think, for just keeping you sane a little bit. I have a tradition every morning in the mirror. I go to the bathroom, I look in the mirror, and I tell myself what day of the week it is. And it just reminds me where I am, that I'm still here, and that today's Thursday, and I'm here. And it's a validating thing to do in the morning, just saying that to yourself. And, think about what you want to do with your day. Yes, and mindfulness, I think allowing yourself to have that time to process what's going on right now. People will be reacting very differently. I think it depends at what level your life experience is. As a trauma survivor, weirdly, I found living in a time of trauma more normal to things I've experienced in my younger life. However, there are days that I found the lack of regular routine and the fact I can't have my personal assistant in to help me has been difficult. So I've yo-yoed between the two a little bit, and I think that that's fine too. So the main point of my video really is, well, there's it's okay to not be working right now, and it doesn't make you any less of a valuable person. Lots of people are going through it at the same time, which makes it a lot easier than when you're going through it on your own. Talk to people, even if you don't want to. Sometimes I really don't want to talk to people. I'm quite happy to just lock myself away in a room and just not speak to anybody. And that is an unhealthy coping mechanism. It's okay for the odd day, but when this starts to become a habit, you need to start talking to people. And just reach out or go on social media groups. You'll be amazed the amount of groups. I mean, it's almost got to the point they say that there's a porn for everything. So if you say anything, try and research it as porn, there will be something. And it's exactly the same with Facebook groups at the moment. Any interest you have, counting socks, I can probably guarantee there's a counting socks Facebook group with members in there. But seriously, any aspect of your personality that you'd like to divulge into, there'll be groups out there for you to socialise. If you don't have family and you don't have close friends, those communities are out there. Don't be alone. Even if typing is something that you find easier to do right now, it's better than not. And yeah, I hope from this that a lot of people have realised that being stuck at home, being forced to be at home when you don't want to be, is not a gift or a pleasant experience. It's nice for the first few weeks if you weren't ill, but when you're ill, it grows tired fast. If you've been ill for 5 years, and I mean ill, I mean feeling sick for 5 years, and I know people who've been 10, 15, 20, 25 years with the same thing, it is not a positive experience. You have to make it a positive experience. You have to work at it being a positive experience and reframe your mindset and know that every single person on this planet, that you have value in whatever you want to do, and don't feel the pressure to conform to the way anybody else is living. And I hope that's helped some of you.